Hi there, here's Christina from Changing Parenting, and I recently had a client that she was really struggling with having a messy house because of having a child. So first of all, it's normal to have messy houses when you have children, right? In this video, I'm going to explain to you how you can get your child to put away their toys after they play. But first, as everything else in parenting, we always need to ask ourselves why. So in this case, what was happening was a mix between her child lacking the skills and also her own personal experience. So she was very controlling when it came to how our child was allowed to play. So for instance, her son had a dump truck and she wouldn't allow her son to dump the stuff in the dump truck on the floor. Of course, when she wasn't watching, he would do it and then, she would lose it. So we started by asking, why isn't the child allowed to, dump the stuff from the dump truck? And it all came to, her own personality and also a lot on how she was raised herself, right? So when she was young, she wasn't really allowed to play in certain ways. And in her brain, it stayed like, we cannot be messy when we play. And that's why it was being so hard for her to parent her child, because she didn't want to parent through fear-based parenting like she was parented, but she was not modeled how to get your child to be not messy and do things in a certain way if you are not, threatening. And so she ended up losing it a lot with her child. And throughout coaching, what we realized was we need to find, and this is always the case, right? There are no one-size-fits-all parenting solutions. The parenting solution that will work for your specific child and for you is a solution that fits their needs, so your child's needs, and also your needs. So in this case, for instance, the child has a need, they need to play, right? They learn by playing. Like in Montessori, there is this saying of, so Maria Montessori used to say, the playing is the child's play. So children learn by playing, and you need to let them explore. Then messy play is really good for their development. So you need to let your child, dump the stuff from the dump truck and be messy and, just be a child. This is really important for their development, right? So that's what they need. Now, what do you need, right? So in this case, the mom, she needed really this idea of so we went really, thing by thing. In this case of the dump truck, what do you need? Why don't you want your child to dump the things in the dump truck? Because it scratches the floor. Okay, then let's create an area. Let's call it the dump truck area. And also, I'm a big fan of Montessori, right? And in the Montessori method, Maria Montessori, she also used to say, one place for everything, everything for its place. And one of the things of Montessori also is this rotation of toys, so we don't have a lot of stuff. So it's better that if your child is into playing with dump trucks right now, that you have an area for dump trucks, even if that means taking away all the other toys for now and storing them away for now. Because also it's like when you go to a store, when you go to a luxury store and there's very little, I don't go to luxury stores, by the way, not my thing at all. But, if you've seen it on TV, they only have very few items on show because it makes them feel more precious, right? So if you go to a museum and there's only one small thing in a huge setting, you're like, oh, this must be very precious, right? So it's the same with the toys. If you have a lot of stuff, it's just so much clutter that children don't really even feel like playing with it. It's just stuff. But if you have this is the dump truck corner, right? Then it becomes oh my God, this is so much fun. I want to go to the dump truck corner, right? And you then rotate the toys as your child develops their interests. But I have another video on rotating toys if you want to check that out. Anyway, so what we did was we need an area where your child can do this without ruining the floor. So what we're going to do is going to find some carpet, something that you maybe already have. In this case, she already had something from when her child was a baby. So she had those, those crawling blankets or carpet. I think it was a carpet. And she put it and she created the dump truck area, right? And that's the area where her child was allowed to play with the dump truck as she wanted. She made it really special for the child. So the child knew This doesn't mean that you let your child do what they want, right? There are, of course, always rules, because again, the solution has to be something that is both good for you and your child. So in this case, she put clear rules with her child, like this is the place for the dump truck, right? We don't play with the dump truck in other places because it scratches the floor. And her child really got that pretty fast, because it was such an exciting thing, having an area just for the dump truck. And she actually went and played with the child a few times so that, you know, he got used to the idea. And then with putting away the toys. So we came to this understanding, right? This, again, it's a solution that when I work with someone, it's always a solution that works for everyone, right? I don't tell you do this, right? So you will tell me what you need and I show you how you can do it. So what happened was we decluttered a lot, so there was less stuff causing chaos in our mind also, because the less toys you have, the less it feels like your house is messy. And again, rotating toys, I have a video on that, as I said. And then the other thing we did was modeling, a lot of modeling. So she would play with her child, and every time the child would want to play with something else, she would say, okay, can you please put away this toy so we can have space now to play with this toy? And if her child said no, that would be okay. She would do it herself. She would model. Okay, then I do it. And after a while, and it didn't take very long, her child started picking up on that. And then it started being kind of a rule that before you play with something, you put the other one away. Does this mean our house was never messy again? Not at all, right? Children are messy and there will always be mess. But what happened was that when her child was starting being very excited, playing with several things, which is also okay, and it's also okay for children to mix toys sometimes, right? And to want to play with this one in that way and not follow the exact rules of how you think that they are supposed to play with things, right? Actually, very often, if we try and play the way children want to play instead of telling them how to play, we learn a lot, right? Because we are like, oh, that's really, interesting. That's a nice way. That's also cool, right? So what happened was when things started getting messy, she would tell her child, oh, this is getting too messy. I cannot go on the floor anymore because look, there's this toy here on the floor and I want to play with you, but I don't have space. Let's clean up together. And again, it's by modeling. And it didn't take long. As I said, by the time we finished working together, our house was, as a general rule, tidy up. The toys were in their place most of the times. Were they in their place 100% not of the time? No, but it started being the rule instead of the exception. Whereas before, the rule was the house was always messy and the exception was that sometimes the things were in their place. And she started having much less stress. She started feeling a lot less overwhelmed because, again, first of all, because things were much more clean up as they were before, right? But also because she found ways to get what she needed in a way that also gave her child what she needed. Because again, I modeled to her how to do it. And that's sometimes you just need it. You just need someone to show you. Because, that's the problem with generic parenting advice. Try this, this influencer did that and it worked. Or this book says to do this. But then when you go and try and apply it, it doesn't work because either your child is not like that and will act in a different way, or it doesn't work for you, right? Because we also have our own baggage and our own personalities. If you need help, just leave a comment.